Good evening. This evening I'm going to cover COS2614 2022 Assessment 1 Question 2, and it's talking about composition relationships. Now, what is composition relationships? When I go to the textbook, have a look on page 76. I've actually got the physical textbook in front of me. There's a chapter 2, 2.5.1 called UML relationships. And in here, I'm going to just read what it's quoted in this book. And this is taken from An Introduction to Design Patterns in C++ with Qt, 2nd edition, by Alan Easist and Paul Easist. Okay. UML is especially good at describing relationships between classes. Jumping ahead a bit to example 2.22, we will describe an important relationship in UML. In that example, we introduce a point class to represent a geometric point on the screen, and a square class to represent a geometric shape on the screen. Point has two integer data members, and square has 2 point data members. The 2 point data members, because they are class objects, are regarded as sub-objects of square. The square object is regarded as the parent of its point sub-objects. When a square object is destroyed, so are its sub-objects. That makes the sub-objects components of the parent object, and the relationship is called composition. And so they say here in figure 2.2, the filled-in diamonds indicate that the instances of that class are composed, at least partially, of instances of the class on the other end of the relationship connector. So the question that we're going to be covering this evening is going to be built around the composition relationship. Okay, and so let's get started with it. The first thing we need to do is obviously read through the question so we can see what it's asking of us. It says here, question 2, consider the following code defining a composition relationship between two classes, and it gives us two classes. So we've got a class Squab and we've got a class position, and we've got private variables, integer score and position pos. So this one is calling position, so position will be the main parent. Then we've got private two integers, x and y, and then we've got a public, and we're saying position, and then we're initializing the 2, and we've got a void. Whenever it changes position, then we've got to pass two variables. And then we're going to put int get and int get y. So we're getting our two integer variables, these things. And then we've got our class Squab, and we initialize it with the two variables from position. And then we've got an int get score and a void in score and a position get pos. And then a void whenever we move, then we've got a char and an int, and the direction and the value, and then the boolean line of sight. So we've got our squab s, and then we've got squab clone. Okay, and so it says here, a squab is meant to represent a creature in a computer game that is played on a rectangular grid. Positions on the grid are specified by two coordinates, x and y. Directions are represented by 4 letters, north, south, east, and west. Movement in direction east causes an increase in the x coordinate, and w a decrease. Movement in the direction n causes an increase in the y coordinate, and s a decrease. Please note, the rules of the game are not important. You are not required to write a program to play the game. You must simply write a program to test the implementations of the Squab and position classes. And it says here, firstly, implement the classes as follows. The Squab constructor should initialize the score to 0 and the position to the specified coordinates. GetScore should return the score, and IncScore should increment it by 1. Okay. GetPos should return a copy of the current position. Move should move the instance in a straight line in a given direction, in a given distance. Line of sight checks whether the current instance is in the same row or column as another Squab instance. Clone creates and returns a pointer to a new instance of Squab with the same position and score as the current instance. The member functions of position are self-explanatory. Note that the score data member and the IncScore member function are intended to allow a Squab instance to accumulate a score. The situations in which the score is increased are part of the rules of the game and are not important for this exercise. Similarly, the situations in which squabs may be moved or cloned are not important for this exercise. You must just make sure that the member functions do what is specified above. Next, write a console app to test all the member functions of the Squab class. It should create a single instance of Squab and then clone it twice, testing whether the cloning works properly. Finally, change the Squab class so that the POS data member is a pointer to a position. You will also need to implement the big 3 copy constructor, assignment operator, and destructor for the Squab class. See the additional notes on pointer data members in the comments in section 2.14 in tutorial letter 102. No changes to the position class are required. Test the changed Squab class with the program you wrote previously. You must submit the following: the header and source files for the changed Squab and position classes, the testing program containing a main function, and the Qt project or profile for all this code. Alright, so that basically gives us and tells us what we need to do. So I'm going to minimize it and move it onto the left of my screen, because we've seen already here that it's given us 2 classes, so we can actually just type out that header information in those classes as per what is on here. The next thing I do is I boot up my computer. Okay, and I would normally click on start. Then I would navigate to where my Qt is. There it is. I would click this drop down over here, and I would choose the Qt Creator. Okay. Once I open the Qt Creator, it should present me with my last saved project, which was Assessment 1, Assignment 1. Okay. So now I'm going to create a new project. Alright. And if you remember what they've said in there that we need to create a console application. So this time we're not creating a Qt widgets application, we're creating a Qt console application. So I choose that, and then I say choose. You can see it's decided that it wants to change my location, and I'm obviously I want to change this location to where I store my files. And for the name of the project, I'm going to give it a name of Squash and Pos. Squab and Pos. Squab and Pos. Next. I'm happy to leave it with this desktop MinGW, and I'm not going to put any version control on it. As you can see, all it's done is created a plain project, something that could run in console. Okay, so it's just created me a main.cpp file. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on this and I'm going to say File and choose New File or Project. And all I want to do is create a C++ file, and I'm going to create a C++ class file. I'm going to choose. Then it wants me to give a name for my class. Going to give my first class name a name of position. Okay. Base class, I'm leaving that as empty because I don't want any of those classes. So I'm just going to click on Next over here and click on Finish. Okay, so I have my base position, and I've got it. It's created me a header, and it's created me the main CPP file that I'll use for that. So I'm going to go back here, go and do the same, and I'm going to call it Squab. Okay, so file, new file, the project. Want another C++ class, and this time I want to call it Squab. Go Next, go Finish. Now it's added that, and so from here I can go to Position, and from Position, from the header, I know that all I want to do is add this private int and that to the bottom. So let me see if it will copy and paste it. No, not. So I'm going to type that out. I'm going to leave it for now. You'll see me typing it out. Let's just type it out here. Private, I want int x, I want int y. Okay, then for position, we're going to leave it in lowercase letters over here, and we're just going to add our variables inside here. I'm going to put int x, int y. I'm going to add the other two. Void change pos, int x, int y. Int get x, const, and get y, const. Okay, and then we've obviously got to go and define those in our position CPP file, but I'm just going to focus on doing the headers for now. So let's go over to Squab, and then we've got Squab over here. Okay, and we want to also create our private variables. Public ones, so we're going to leave Squab over here, and we can say int x, int y, int get score, const, position, get pos, const, void move char dn int de boolean of sort Squab s const, and then finally Squab star plain const. Okay, so that's our two headers done. So the next thing we're going to carry on to is defining our definitions of these. Okay, I'm just wanting to show you, this is what our profile looks like, .pro file. Okay, so we're supposed to have our plus equals core, we're saying no GUI, then we have our Squab and pos, we're saying it's a console, and we're not having any app bundle, and then the template is app, and then we've got our sources, which is our 3 CPP files and our 2 header files. I feel that our position is the easiest one to define, so we're going to go ahead and define all our classes. So you've got all the classes defined here, so we need to just make sure that our CPP file matches that. So when I go here to position, you can see at the moment it's missing our variables in here, so we just go like that. Okay, and here we can say x equals our x value, okay, and y equals our y value. Alright, and then we're going to do the next one, which it will be our void. So I'm just going to copy this here, and don't forget to include the class. Alright, and then we're going to define these. So this is change pos, so we use this, and we say x equals x, and this, we have that, y equals y. Okay, then the next class we're going to define is getX. You mustn't forget this. class, and all we're going to do for get x, we just want to return the value of x. And the reason we do that is because in our header file you'll see that these variables are private, and so you can't get them any other value, so you basically got to use a getter. And so this get x and get y are getters, and that's why we have getters and setters in C++, is so that we can call on those to return the values that we need. Okay, and copy our class. And obviously that one would just return y. And there we go. Now we have officially defined our defined our position class in the CPP file. So the next one we're going to move on to is our squab definition. Okay. Okay, and for our squab one, we've got an int x and a int y, so we need to copy this and paste it in. Paste it there, okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say x equals x, y equals y, and if you take a look over here, it says the squab constructor should initialize the score to 0 and the position to the specified coordinates. Okay, so the x equaling x and the y equaling y would initialize that to the current position. Okay, and what we're going to do is then we're going to set a score. We're going to have a new variable called score, and we're going to set that to 0. We're going to initialize that to 0. But this is where I'm getting it wrong, because we're actually going to call new, and we're going to say position, new position, and then we're going to say x and y. That's how we can do this one, x and y, because we've got our coordinates in position. Okay, so that will be for that. The next one, the next class that we've got for squab is this get score. Copy squab. Paste. Need this part. Copied a bit too much. There we go. Okay, in the get score, it says here get score should return the score, and the included score should increment by 1. Alright, so if we're going to do that, then obviously with score we're just going to say return score. Okay, and then what they said was we had to have an inc score, so let's just go back to squab, and we haven't got an ink score over here, so we're going to have to create one. For that, we want to go back to our header file, and in here we're going to start adding our extra ink score. We're going to create a void ink score, okay, and then we can go and copy this back to our Squab over here, and then copy the class, and we define ink score as just increment of 1. Okay, the next one that we have on our list, the Squab, is position, get position. And when we read here, it says getPos should return a copy of the current position. So this is what we want to copy, class. Take this comma away and define that, and the position, we're saying we want to return our position. Why is it? I think I'm in the wrong thing here. I'm going to position. We're done with position. It's a Squab. Our next one is our move. And it says here, move should move the instance in a straight line in a given direction in a given distance. Okay? So for this, we're going to use a switch case, okay, and we're asking for giving us the direction, and then as you remember, there's 4 different directions. We've got north, south, east and west. So within the switch, we need to say if the case is north, alright, then the position changes, and we ask it to return the X and the Y. increase it by whatever value they've given us. Okay, if they're giving us north and south, then we got to ask what value forward we want to move, and so that's where that comes in. So the next case we're going to create is for south, and we're basically going to do exactly the same that we've done here, but remember what it was said in the memo, that if movement in the direction E causes an increase in the x coordinate, and a W a decrease, movement in the direction north causes an increase in the y coordinate, and S is a decrease. So instead of having an increase here, we're going to now have a decrease. Okay, and then yeah, now we're gonna, so that is correct for there, and let's go for our next case, which should be east. Okay, and for that we are going to increase the X position and not the Y position. So we could still copy this, but at the moment this is increasing the Y position, and we don't want to increase the Y, we want it to increase on the X. So we just relocate this increase request to the X position. Okay, and we do the same with the west one. We're just going to move the position from the Y to the X. So we take this decrease amount out, and we're going to put it over here. Okay, so that will be the definition for that. Then the next one is our line of sight. Oh, didn't even want to add the class in here. It's going to cause errors if you forget to add the class. Okay. And line of sight, we basically want to return our positions. So we're going to say return pos, and we're going to say get X, and we're going to assign it to whatever we're going to ask what is the current S position. So pos get X, we're going to use the OR statement, and we're going to say pos get our Y, which should equal the S pos get Y. Okay. And the final one that we should be doing is the claim. We're going to say return new squab and this. Okay, so now we've defined our headers and our class definitions. Alright, so the next one we're going to move over to is our main. And in our main, we're going to add a couple more includes. So at the moment we've got our core application. We also want to include our queue string. We also want to include our text stream. And then obviously we need to include our two header files. So we're going to include our squab squab.h, that's correct. And we also want to include our position.h. Okay, so now we've got those included. Then missing the hashtag over here. Okay, we're going to create a output. So we're going to use queue text stream, queue text stream. We're going to use our cout and we're going to call it std out. This is how Qt defines our cout statement. Alright, and then we're going to create a void class called display squab. And the reason that we do this is we basically are just separating some basic functions so that we can have more control over our formatting options. And so this is a good practice, especially in Qt, that we separate the outputs and inputs into like sub functions within the main, so that we don't have to so that if we do detect errors, then we can quickly identify them by just being able to see what which function it is that's failing. And so that's what's nice about separating it. So this output is for the display, for a screen. So we say squab now at position, and we use %1 and %2 as these are placeholders for the information that we're going to store or retrieve. So we say score is, and we have to use %3 because that's it's got to have a unique number, and this \n is for a new line. Okay, so at the end over here, what we do is we're passing it arguments. So we put the .arg, and then we say s, which is this one that's coming in here, S, and we wanted to get the position, because that's the first option we've got over here, %1. So we say get pos, okay, and then on top of that we want to get X, so that we've got the X position, okay. Then the second argument, we wanted to return the Y position, so we do exactly the same, where we say S and we want to get pos, okay, and we wanted to get Y. Get Y, okay. And then finally, the third argument, we're asking it to get the score. So we just got S dot get score, and then we close our brackets and we make sure that our end of line has a semicolon on it. Okay, so that's the end of our line. If we go out, that's the last of it for the subfunction. The next part that we're going to do now is we're going to create another void, but it's going to be display line of sight, okay, LOS, and this is going to have two variables passed to it. We want the S1 and the next squab, which is going to be assigned T, okay. And over here we're going to create two Q strings, alright, so we're going to say Q string, and we're going to call the first one string S, and we're going to say Q string, and on my first execution of the code, seeing that I've got 14 errors in total, and it's one of the reasons being is that in my Squab header I have not included the position. I haven't imported the position for it, and so I need to do that. So let's see if it'll be happy to run now. There was an error in my code over here. I see I put the void in the wrong location. Got to put the void here and then the position there. So it highlighted that error for me. Let me just try and run it again. And there we go. We managed to get our program to run. So I hope this video has been helpful. Thank you for watching. I hope that you've learnt a lot. Let me know if there are any questions regarding this. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Goodbye.